Hey, all you cool cats and kittens out there. Uh, this is Mr. Showalter, ready to teach you about solving equations. This is 1.2 day 2. What I'd like to do, our goals today is to talk a little bit about combining like terms, the distributive property, and what that means to solve equations. So here we go. Let's get it. All right, combining like terms. Combining like terms are expressions that are separated by adding and subtracting. Those are the different terms, but that have multiplying or dividing in them. Like terms are ones that have the same variable to the same exponent. So when we go ahead and look at this, part A, we have 5x, and looking at the other ones, the only other one with just an x to the first would be this negative 6x. And when we see that, we want to consider grabbing the sign to the left as we work on it. So we want to think 5, and then to the sign to the left of the 6, that's negative 6. So 5 minus 6 would be negative 1. So we're going to write negative x. We're not going to write negative 1x because that's kind of like writing extra stuff that we don't have to. And then we have this 9xy that we're going to drop on the right, and that's it. We can't combine the term with just an x and the term with the xy because they're not like terms. They're kind of incompatible. It's like talking about inches and inches squared. One's area, one's length. You can't really combine them. We take a look at B. We've got a bunch of g's. We've got 3 g's here. When we go ahead and look at the 3 g's, we want to look at the signs to the left. So 4, positive 7, and that's a negative 1 out there. So we're going to think 4 plus 7 is 13, or is 11, minus 1 is 10. So we're left with 10g at the end of the day. Let's get it. Next one, distributive property. If you remember, what we have is we have this 3 times that whole quantity to the right. So we have 3 times 2m and 3 times 4. So 3 times 2m, we're going to think 3 times 2, which is going to be 6m, then 3 times 4, which is going to be 12. And we can't combine these. We're going to stop there because they're not like terms, meaning they don't have the same variables to the same exponents. All right, looking at D, when we distribute 15 times 1h, we're going to do 15 times 1, which is 15. So we have 15h. Then we're going to do 15 times 1/3. Now, you can utilize your calculator if you want to do that, or you can do it by hand. 15 over 1 times 1/3 would be 15 thirds, which is then 5. So on that, we have plus 5. Again, there's our answer. Taking a look at this one, can you use the distributive property to describe this or to solve this? We want to explain it in words. The answer is yes, we can. How can we, though? We would multiply negative 2 by x, and then negative 2 by 5. So that would be the first step. Negative 2x minus 10 equals 4. And then we would solve it like a two-step equation that we did yesterday. So in order to do that, we would turn around and add 10. But we just wanted to talk about how we would use the distributive property to solve it. All right, when we take a look at here, some more practice, we get 10 times g, which would be 10g. 10 times 3.5, which it's like moving the decimal one. So it's plus 35, and then equals 75. Keep going. We have 10 times g, and we have plus 35. So we're going to minus 35, minus 35. So we get 10g equals 40. Divide by 10, divide by 10. We get g equals 4 for that. That would be our solution. Now, when we have here, we have negative 5 times y, negative 5 times 9. So negative 5 times y is going to be negative 5y. Negative 5 times 9 will be negative 45. And that's going to equal negative 55. We go ahead and do this. We're going to add 45 to both sides. So we get negative 5y equals, so we get negative 55 plus 45 is going to be negative 10. And then we're going to divide by 5 because we have negative 5 times y. So we're going to divide by negative 5. So we get y equals 2. Great. Here we go. Keep going. So on to this next one, clearing fractions. You know what? Quite frankly, I prefer to just straight up do this in the calculator. So we're going to actually kind of skip this clearing fraction part and just do it like we typically did all the other questions because I want you to use your calculator if you don't know how to do the fractions by hand. But so here we go. When we're solving this, we would do add 5. So we get -5 equals 1/2 x. And then since it's 1/2 times x, we would multiply both sides by 2. So we get -10 equals x. There we go. Number 2, now we're going to have to deal with these fractions, so that's going to be a little bit tricky, but we can handle that. So we're going to solve this. We want to get that x by itself. We've got a times 1/8 and a plus 1/2. So instead, we can't get, I don't want to get rid of the 1/8 first. I want to get rid of this 1/2 because it's the weaker bond. So it's plus 1/2. We're going to subtract 1/2, subtract 1/2. So we get 1/8 x equals 1/4 minus 1/2. Well, we want to get the denominators the same in order to subtract that. So this has to be 1/4. So 1/2 is 2/4. So we're going to do 1/4 minus 2/4, which is going to be -1/4. So we get -1/4 here. And then when we go ahead and do this, we get 1/8 times x. So in order to get rid of 1/8 or x over 8, we're going to multiply both sides by 8. And we get x equals -32. When we have here, we have all sevens. We have like terms here. 2/7 plus 4/7 is going to be 6/7 x, -30 over 7. Now what we can do, we have 6/7 times x. We can see that it's divided by 7 and multiply through by that if we want to, or we can turn around and we can actually multiply by the reciprocal of that to get rid of the whole fraction at the same time. Because I can see that this is 6 times x and then x over 3 as well. So but instead of I'm just going to multiply by 7 to get rid of the 7 first. So we get 6x equals negative, those cancel, -30, and then we're going to divide by 6, and we get x equals -5. Keep going here. We have 2/3 minus 5/6x equals 1/12. So on the x, we have a times, and we have this adding or subtracting sign to the left on that is a plus. So the weaker bond is this one out front. So we're going to subtract that opposite sign, -2/3. Can't forget this one. So it's -5/6x equals 1/12 minus 2/3. So we want common denominator. The LCD on this one would be 12 between those two. So we're going to multiply this by 4 and 4. How do we do that? I said what times 3 gives us 12 if it's a multiple of it. And then so we get on the right here, we're thinking 1/12 minus 8/12, and we get -7/12. So we get -7/12 there. Again, I'm going to multiply by 6. I'm going to take that negative with me to get rid of it right now too. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 6. These cancel. We get -5x. -6 over 12 is going to be -1 over 2. But these two negatives are also going to cancel. So we actually get 1/2 there. So these two are going to reduce. That's going to be 1. That's going to be 2. So we get 7/2. Divide by 5. Divide by 5. Which is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. Divide by 5, which is the same as 7/2 times 1/5. Multiply through, because they're fractions, 7/10. So -5 actually. So it's going to be x equals 7/10 as our final answer. Keep going here. All right. Are you able to turn decimals into whole numbers? We're not going to do that. We're simply going to understand to do this in our calculator. I'm going to do it by hand because I don't have a calculator handy, but it's number 5. So we have 6.3 times x and then minus 9.6. So we're going to get rid of that by adding 9.6 plus 9.6. So then we have 12.6 equals 6.3x. Dividing by 6.3. I get lucky since I'm doing it by hand that that's going to be 2. If not, I would have pulled out a calculator. Okay, here we go again. We got this last question to deal with. I'm going to pull out a calculator just in case. So we're going to add it's adding 1.25. So we're going to subtract it to both sides. And why did I do that? well, I noticed that it's times and plus. This is the weaker bond. That's the outside the order of operation, so we're going to do that first. A 0.0258 equals 3 minus 1.25, which is going to be positive 1.75. Then we're going to divide by 0.25 on both sides. We're going to get A equals 1.75 divided by 0.25 is going to be 7. And check to see if we messed up on any negatives to be safe. Nope, we're good. And there we go. One last question here for us today. So using the question at the right, if you applied the distributive property first to solve the equation, what operation will you need to do last? So you got to think through the problem as to what would be last. First would be to distribute. Then you would add whatever this is to both sides. And then you would get rid of whatever is left over here. So you could, so let's start it. So if we distribute that, we get 30 there, and we get 6/2d equals 34. So we would subtract 30 and then divide by 2. So the last one, divide by 2. Now, instead of doing that, we could turn around and we could divide first if you'd like. So instead of multiplying 6 times that whole thing, we could divide the whole thing by 6 if we wanted. That would go away. We get d over 3 minus 5 equals whatever 34 divided by 6 is. That as a fraction, if you divide that by 2, we would get 17 over 3. And then we would keep going, add. So our last step, if we were to distribute first, would be divide by 2. Our last step, if we were to divide by 6 first, would be multiply by 3. Because we would add 5, and then multiply by 3 to get rid of it. All right, hope that helps. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Make sure you fill out the notes and submit it in the document. Peace.